All right. All right. Well, good morning, everybody. How y'all doing today?
Good morning. Good, and yourself?
Very good. Very good. I am going to talk to you guys today about the law of pain. Um, Najee made a joke. He's like, "Am I going to pick my scale where I'm at today? Where are you at today? Where are you guys at today? In your lives, in your business, where do you guys feel you are? You're in a good place. You're in an awesome place. Are you going through a little bit of pain? Maybe a lot of bit of pain. Anybody want to share? Start us off? Because I told you I'm going to get y'all talking today.
Good morning. I'll start. It's Najee.
Hey, Najee.
I'm in moderate pain today. You know, you cringe when you get text messages in the morning and people are gonna follow through, and then it's first thing in the morning. But it's all gonna work out. It always works out. You just gotta you just gotta think, plan, take a couple deep breaths. The double breath. You know the double breath.
Yeah.
I do it every day.
Yep. Was it Sandra that was teaching us about breathing? Just got to breathe, right? Before we move on. Anyways, we're talking about the law of pain, and we're talking about bad experiences, right? And how they can be growth opportunities. So this is directly from the 15 Invaluable Laws of Growth, right? So there's no mystery. It's chapter 8, talking about the law of pain. So there's a lot of things that are going to come out of there that I'm going to be using for us to reflect on and to talk about through. So if you want to read the full chapter to kind of understand, learn a little bit more about it, that's where you can go, right? Now, I love that it starts off with this quote because it had me sitting thinking, right? Every problem introduces a person to himself or herself. Every problem. So essentially, when you have a problem, when you have an issue, when you have a pain, how you show up and what you do says a lot about who you are, right? So we're just going to jump right into pain files. So these are examples from the book, and I want us to be able to kind of feel and get really kind of get into this place where we're understanding what pain is, as far as not physical pain, but failures, negative experiences that have shaped your life, right? And I'm hoping that you guys are willing to share. Pain doesn't have to be this huge, massive experience, right? It could be something as simple as just the pain of experience. Have you guys in experience? Have you guys ever been in a situation where you just felt like you were not qualified as a new agent? We go out there, we're expected to help people with the biggest purchase of their lives, and we have no idea what we're doing. And so there's failures, there's missteps, and we learn really fast through those pain experiences, right? The pain of disappointment. I mean, I could tell you, I probably go through this, often, as many of you guys probably do, in big and little ways, right? Now, you just talked about the text messages you got, right? Different experiences where people or things just cut you down, right? One of the biggest experiences that was kind of shaped where I am now is, I graduated college, and I thought I did everything right. I went to a 4-year school. I did a 2-year school. I worked at jobs over the summer, internships. And so when I graduated, I just knew I was getting this job and I was starting my life right away. And I had gotten married right after my master's program, moved out of state from Massachusetts to New Jersey, and I could not get a job in my field whatsoever. Had no network, I had nobody reach out to in New Jersey, and it took me a year before I decided to kind of shift paths and at least kind of move forward in some way, shape, or form, which allowed me the opportunity during that time to gain new experiences that I never would have had, and ultimately led me to my road in real estate. But it was a painful, disappointing time in my life, right? Where I just felt like all the work I had put in had been wasted, really, right? And so it took a lot of work to gain back that confidence that I had lost during that time. Anybody else have, just kind of based on some of the examples here, and there, I had added from the book, I had added, the last two, the pain of embarrassment and pain of rejection, because those are painful experiences that I'm sure that we can all relate to as well. Anybody have any experiences or anything that they are willing to share, right? To kind
Good
of
morning.
address here.
Tingling. I can talk about pain of bad health. Um, it took a long time for me to get myself together after I, was diagnosed with autoimmune disorder. And recently I was bit by a tick, and it just knocked my whole system out of whack. And now I have to go through all over again, going back to the doctors, being put on medications that have a whole bunch of side effects. And it's like a fail, not really a failure, but now I have to start all over again. And it's depressing sometimes. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm
Yeah, I
so
get,
sorry to hear that. You
yeah.
should.
But I got to keep pushing on no matter what the situation is. I've got to say, I got through it before, can do it again. Just got to
Yeah,
push through.
absolutely. And we'll be praying for you to push through and be able to come much stronger out on the other side, Keisha.
Yeah.
I
And
appreciate you sharing that.
because of that, the financial loss, and it's just hard, but I have a drive to push on and get my business out and, do what I have to do to make that. I know how to do it. So, just got to push through and do it. So that's it.
Thank you for sharing. Anybody else want to share?
So, good morning, everybody. I've been MIA lately. I was in Vegas, so 3 hours behind all last week, but I'm back. So I wanted to talk about the pain of relationship loss, because I feel like a lot of us go through this within our business when we're growing, and we don't know how to handle it because, we've always had this person part of our lives, or they've always been our crutch, or whatever that may be, because it's our comfort. And when that goes away, it's scary. Like, you start questioning, am I making the right decisions? Am I going down the right path? Am I sacrificing the right thing? So that has been huge for me in struggling with that, because I am a recovering people pleaser. So it's really hard for me to say no or separate. So I don't know if anybody else resonates with that, but that one hits me really hard.
That person you thought was going to be in your life forever, and then all of a sudden you started growing and you realized that you guys were no longer in the same place.
Yes.
Or even a truly physical loss of relationship, someone passing, someone important in your life, right? And kind of the hole that leaves. And I'm sure that many of us can relate to that.
Absolutely. And I did experience that. I know, I lost my dad 2 years ago this month, or last month, and I didn't realize how much that affected me. I had to go to therapy for it, and to kind of like, not traditional therapy, but I did have to release it and realize that, you know, just because he's not physically here doesn't mean I can't be physically here. So it was a lot. It was really heavy.
I'll offer a little perspective. Basically, I know I've already shared, you know, that my son has some special needs, and I found that out when I was pregnant. And that was my first child. So, you know, going over those kinds of things for people, I try to make sure that I always share that, you know, you do go through a specific kind of a grieving process. Because you're really just not sure what's going to happen with your child, especially if you really have never seen that kind of impairment in your whole life. It's including when you go to private school. Like, I had never been exposed to, you know, physical challenges. I had always, you know, when you have empathy, but I'd never kind of lived in close proximity to it. And, you know, so there's like a whole process that you go through. But I can, you know, attest that on the other side of it, you know, like it was, I kind of like, I'm sure, you know, I know this process and I went through it, and literally used it to say, okay, you're not going to stay here for a really long time. You know, it's tough, and we'll figure it out. We'll figure out the needs. We'll figure out, you know, the future when we need to figure out the future. We'll just start to do things that we can touch. But that is obviously one of those things that's really challenging when you just don't know. Whether he's going to live or die or anything like that.
Right. Yeah. No, your story always touches me every time you talk about it, Leticia, because I couldn't even imagine. And yet I see how you have used that pain to just do some amazing things. So, anybody else want to share before we move on?
Good morning. Good morning. It's Anna.
Hi, Anna.
So I have like a whole mix of emotions, because as a woman, it's not that we're less or more than a man, but I just feel like since you do have kids, or we have kids, and we have a household, and yes, I have somebody that will clean the house and whatever, but my duties as a mom can't stop, or even being a wife. Because I don't want to fail as a mom, and I don't want to fail as a wife, and running a business is like super beyond hard, because yes, you do lose some friends that you're supposed to be your girls and be there for forever, supposedly, right? And then you find out that they're really not on your side, or they're not aligned with your goals and your vision, or even your whole purpose of what it is that you're calling it is that you're doing your job, right? So that is like super beyond hard. And to add to it, just like Leticia said, that's why I think people have divine connections. Nobody's going to understand your position unless you literally walk through it. And just like Leticia is like, okay, I'm declaring my daughter is healthy and she's good, and she was a bridge to cure cancer and the whole thing. But just to go through the process of all these tests and all this stuff, and have to literally disconnect and stop your business just because you need to make sure that nothing is happening and everything's going to be fine, or the follow-ups with like my daughter, that drives me crazy. That's like the biggest pain, that nobody can replace you at all, and it's like you have to be present. So that's my thing. I try to be present at the moment, not only for my daughter, my kids, for my husband, to tell him I'm not missing in action, you know. And of course, when I have my clients and they're in the pipeline, it's like, forget it. We're going to be best friends. We're going to talk 20 million times a day if we have to, all the way until and after the closing. But that is like so hard. And
Yeah. No,
it's painful.
Yeah, and I appreciate you sharing. And I mean, there was a lot of different pain points that I heard in there, and one of the loudest ones I heard was the pain of responsibility that we have as moms, as parents. Obviously I can relate from a woman's perspective, and yet I truly empathize and feel for our gentlemen out there as well, who have the societal pressures of needing to provide, right, at a high level for their families, for their sphere, right, and the pain and responsibility that has as well, right. And so, as a mom, I I got to be present. I got to be there. I got to, right. And that takes responsibility or precedence over even my business, right? And what kind of conflicts that can cause in my life, in my schedule, my time, and
Our schedule
and
is crazy. Not forget it, right?
yeah, well, exactly. But even with their paying responsibility, I know from a leadership perspective, right? John Maxwell says in the book, wanting everybody to be happy and making tough decisions are incompatible tasks. And I learned as good leadership that good leadership is disappointing people at a rate they can stand. Right. So the responsibility as a leader to have to manage other people and make decisions that some may not be happy with, right? And you have to be able to be okay with that. Sabrina? Did you want to say something?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, sorry, I couldn't find it on my phone. This is every time everybody spoke and shared, I felt like, oh, I wish I didn't know what that meant. I feel all of it resonated with me. And what's coming up for me is, what is your pain tolerance and why is your pain tolerance what it is, right? Like oftentimes when we experience things, it heightens our level, right? Like our pain tolerance level. And then it's like you end up getting numb after you've experienced all of these things repeatedly. And it no longer looks like pain to you, but other people are like, how are you handling this? How are you still moving through it? And then what you just said about being a leader is that's a balancing act, especially when you're an empath and you're a leader and you got to make decisions and you have to consider how your decisions are going to affect someone else's pain.
Ooh, that one hit me because I'm a bit of an empath, and so I feel everything. I feel emotions and everything around me, and so when I have to make a tough decision that I know some will like and some won't, it's tough, right? And that's a painful situation to be in, personally. So I appreciate you sharing. But you know me, we're gonna talk about this tough subject, and we're not gonna stay in this. We're not gonna stay in this place because one thing that we know is that there will always be good and bad experiences. Oftentimes we cannot help, and that good and bad experiences will find you regardless, right? And so for us, it's about how we are able to handle those experiences and how we use them to shape our life, right? And so we're going to talk about how you're turning that pain into gain. And there's 5 different steps we're going to go through, and we're going to talk about turning that pain into gain, right? First one is choosing life stance. Najee started off amazingly, right? When he says, you know what? Regardless, everything's going to be okay. Regardless, things are going to work out, right? Your life stance is a set of attitudes, assumptions, and expectations that people hold about themselves, other people, and the world in general. This is your overall way of looking at things. And it could be positive or negative. You get to choose, right? For a lot of people who have good and bad experiences, right? The good and bad experiences with a positive life stance can get better, right? From good to better, from bad to better. Bad experiences, a negative life stance, a good and or bad experience typically can get worse, right? Could be worse. Just depends on how you look at it, right? And so choosing to have a positive life stance is one of your first steps towards being able to turn your pain into gain. Going through the experiences that we're going through and saying there's a reason for it, and what's the reason, right? And or it's going to work out regardless. Man, that really sucked. And what are we going to do to turn this around, or I know that this is going to get better regardless. Right. So choosing to have a positive life stance. Number 2, embrace and develop your creativity. See possibilities within your problems. You guys are a creative bunch because you've talked about different ways that you've been able to navigate some of the pains and some of the challenges that you've experienced. And you don't realize sometimes that these experiences are allowing us to sharpen and shape our problem-solving skills. Because we're having to get creative about how we're going to manage this, or how we're going to handle that situation. How are we going to get through this? How are we going to get past this? We deal with it all the time in our respective businesses. I know I do problem solving all the time through disappointments and through issues that cause my clients pain and myself pain, towards getting still a positive outcome. My recent closing that I had a client who had two failed transactions. Their house is on the market. They were under contract. They lost that house that they were under contract for. And yet I truly believe that they were meant to have something better anyways. So I wasn't worried about the house they lost. I was worried about wanting to make sure that they were going to be good. We had to get them right back under contract. Then we had to go ahead and find them another house. Do you know they found, not only did they get under contract, they found a better house in a better location for their children. And I couldn't have been more thrilled with the outcome and experience. It took longer than expected. And yet I truly believe that it was on God's time and in God's plan for things to happen the way they did. And yet we had to get creative on how we had to manage through those issues that happened and came, and develop kind of a different system on how we were going to vet the buyers and all of that, right? And that happened out of the pain of the disappointments of the transactions. There was a story in the book that I really liked that I thought was cute, that I was going to share with regards to developing your creativity. It was a cute little story about a farmer who owned chickens, right? Who had chicken coop on his farm, and yet he had a problem in the springtime with flooding, with rain and flooding, and it would flood and drown a lot of the chickens. And so, if he couldn't move fast enough, he would lose hundreds of chickens. There was one spring where he had the worst spring ever, and he lost his entire, flock of chickens, and he goes to his wife, "I've had it. I don't know what I can do. We just lost everything again. I can't sell it, and I can't move." And he's like, "I don't know what to do." The wife turned around, looked at him and said, "Buy ducks. If we're going to have to stay here and it's going to be flooding, why can't we turn out to, redirect and, buy ducks can swim, right?" And so I thought it was a really cute little story, and yet it was a simple reminder that any bad experiences that we have, we can choose to find a different path, and or to find a way to be able to turn around into our favor, right? Any thoughts so far on the first two that we just shared, that I just talked about? Positive life stance and developing creativity. No? Okay. Number 3, embracing the value of bad experiences. Understanding that where there is no struggle, there is no progress. Have you heard the expression, no pressure, no diamonds? Right? That we are meant to go through bad experiences in order to come out stronger on the other side, right? in order to be able to appreciate the things that we have, where we are. Facing difficulties is inevitable. I talked about that before. We go on to experience bad things, but learning from them is optional. We get to choose how those experiences will shape us. You can either be bitter or better as an outcome of your experiences, correct?
Yes,
I
absolutely.
told you. I told y'all we're gonna talk, right? You're either gonna be bitter or you're gonna be better, right? And we talk about failing forward, that most success doesn't happen. True success doesn't usually happen unless you've had massive failures, multiple failures in your path. But understanding that those failures have given you opportunity to come out better, right? And be able to move forward. Without those failures, you probably wouldn't be where you are today. You probably wouldn't experience the successes that you've had today, right? Turning. Number 4, make good changes from after learning from the bad experiences. What's the point of having the bad experiences if you're not going to be able to identify opportunities for change, right? Growth depends on how you react to your experience and the changes that you make as a result, right? Accepting that we're going to have bad experiences is one thing, and yet understanding that those bad experiences are opportunities for us to make changes, positive changes, to be able to move forward. That's where the gold is. That's where the growth is. It gives us an opportunity to turn our lives around. How many people have you heard that have stories of having a heart attack or having a stroke, or having diagnoses that have allowed them to change their health habits, right? Their lives, to be able to turn their lives around.
I'll add that for me, I just found that you're on this career path or a life path, and I wasn't as intentional, or like my why was not very clear, but my why became literally crystal clear, to the point where if you're not in alignment with it, it's got to go. Because my sons and their well-being and their life and their future, when I'm here or when I'm long past, is my why is clear because of that. Without it, then it wouldn't have, I don't see where it would have been come into focus.
Absolutely. And you talk about the clarity that you have, which allows you to create some sort of boundaries and structures, right? So there's a level of discipline that you have put in your life, and that is a pain in itself, right? Like there's certain times where we have to be disciplined with ourselves. We've been talking about the health journey that a lot of us have been on. That takes a certain level of discipline. Sometimes it's not fun, right? Sometimes I would love to be able to eat the pizza and do certain things that would not be conducive to what my goal is currently, right? And so I get to either live with the pain of self-discipline or the pain of regret, the regret of not achieving the goal that I currently want to achieve, right? And so that kind of comes into play, that speaks to making the changes after learning from those bad experiences. You get to decide whether you make those changes or not, right? So whether you develop the self-discipline needed for that particular change, or you have the pain of regret, right? When you realize that you missed an opportunity to make that change. And understanding too that, right, there's thinking that's involved, but there's also emotion that's involved. And true change truly changing your behavior, it doesn't matter how much information we have until we are able to influence our feelings and emotions. True change does not happen, right? Travis talks all the time about the subconscious mind and how emotion is the driver, right? When you have attached powerful emotions to the change and or to the experience, right? Change inevitably has to happen, right? Because your emotions are driving you, right? Emotions are the heart of change. And then the last one is taking responsibility for your life. Recognize that your circumstances don't define you, right? Avoiding the label of victim and self-pity, and owning your choices and your actions. Your life is your life. You may not have had influence over some of the bad experiences that you've had, right? Because they will come. And yet you get to decide that that doesn't define you. Those circumstances don't define you. That you're not the victim, because you get to choose how you turn that experience into positivities, right? My mother was a single mother with my grandmother, God bless her. They raised myself, my sister, with all they had. And sometimes that meant a pot of rice. And that was all we had. And yet, watching how they worked hard to provide and to ensure that we were okay, that we were taken care of, I used that even back then as a child to understand that I needed to do my job too, right? And so at the time, my job was school. So I needed to do the best and be the best that I could be, so that they understood that the sacrifices that they were making were we're going to have positive results, right? So that's how I, back then I used certain pains in order to move forward and even without a child, what that meant and what that looked like. How are you guys feeling about these 5 different ways and opportunities to be able to turn your pain into gain, into growth? As we wrap up here this morning.
Hi. So, I have actually been putting all this into practice, and then, hearing you and seeing the slides, definitely, showed me that, yes, I'm going through the right path. I'm always try to be optimistic, try to find the good in the bad, and always holding on to the Lord, Some days are hard, some are easy, but it's a balance. But
Absolutely.
definitely, yeah, it really made me feel really good. Like, yeah, I'm doing the right thing.
And you are. I mean, just showing up on these calls, right? For some of us is ways that we're trying to move forward, being creative and trying to find ways to kind of help navigate us out of whatever current pains we're going through.
Hi.
Hi, Sandra.
So I'm in here a little late because I couldn't get into the Zoom call, but I feel like I love this topic, and I also want to just offer a question that is very helpful for me when pain is in my life in whatever form it is, and that is to ask yourself a really powerful question. And I feel like powerful questions really help us shift the focus from pain to opportunity. And so the question that I ask myself when that's happening in my life is, how is this a gift?
I like that.
Yeah. So yeah, that really is helpful for me. How is this thing that's happening that is seemingly painful and horrible? How is this a gift for me? And how is this happening for me? I love that. And somebody shared it with me, and I just want to share it with you guys because it's like, it kind of gets to the root of it. Like, okay, this is happening. I have no control over what just happened. And so what can I do with it? And the question is, and that's really helpful if you journal it as well. Like, how is this a gift? And then write it down so you can like do a stream of consciousness about all the ways that this can. So for your example of the rice and your single mom, how did this help me? I mean, you can go on for 10 pages,
So many ways.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So
That is awesome. That's an awesome segue to the fact that, guys, in the group, on the Facebook page, I'll be posting some a process of questions that you can ask. I'm going to include your question too, Sandra, because I loved it. That you can ask, what's the problem, all the way down to what's the solution, and or how is this meant to help me grow? And so look out on the Facebook page. I will be sharing questions that will allow you to do self-activity as you are realizing or acknowledging certain pain points that you're going through, that you can do self-reflection and journaling upon. So I'll put that on the Facebook page later on today. And so when you have a chance, kind of go back and revisit for yourself if you'd like to do some activities around this so that you're not staying in this, right? This isn't a conversation for us to stay in this pain. This is a conversation for us to grow through the pain points that we're having and become better leaders, individuals, whatever the case may be, right? And so I thank you all for sharing this morning, because I know this is not an easy topic. And I pray for positive life stances for all of you, because Sandra, that question doesn't come up unless you have a positive life stance, right? How is this a gift? Assumes the fact that this pain is meant to help you in some way, shape, or form, right?
Yeah.
So thank you all. And unless there's any final thoughts, you guys have a wonderful day. And I think that tomorrow morning we may have Jana. Is that right? I don't know that Jana's in the room. But regardless, we're going to have a great conversation. Okay.
thank you, Valerie.
Thank you guys. Take care.